Hi, welcome to Race House with me, Joe Lee.
And me, Darren Reeves.
Well, Italiano, we've just done the first Italian race of the season. It was the Emilia Romagna, also known as Imola or San Marino, I think, the old
Used
school.
to be.
Yeah, that's how Darren knows it.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a really, really fun race with a really fun ending as well, similar to a couple of Premier League teams, which we won't go into. But really, really interesting race. We had a lot of runoffs. We saw some really intensive racing, some amazing overtaking, and some crazy pit stop mistakes as well. This race had a lot of elements that we love as F1 fans, Darren.
We do. For me, you mentioned the mistakes. People going across the S's, across the grass. Alonso, when do we see Alonso make a mistake? Crashed it in practice and, just ruined his weekend, really. Started from the pit lane and went out on softs. That wasn't the right decision either at the start. So, yeah, just more mistakes. Seeing Verstappen go off as well, like he was through practice. We don't see that. So, the field has definitely closed up. That's for sure. And a little bit of pressure on Verstappen and make him actually work for it rather than just control the race. We've watched Verstappen for 2 years, I believe, so far out in front that he's just trying to drive as slowly as he can, and he still wins by 20 seconds. We're not seeing that now, and that's really exciting for us fans, as you say, Joe. Uh, so, but I've got to be honest, I was a little bit bored until the last 10 laps. You say there's loads of stuff in it. There's little bits and bobs, but watching people make mistakes or just watching a track where it's only got a very short DRS zone, for me, there wasn't enough in it until the last 10 laps.
The last 10 laps certainly were exciting. It was a bit like watching the boxing. It's kind of not much happens, and then suddenly there's a flurry. McLaren really have come on a long way. I mean, their upgrades that they've done recently for Lando and Oscar as well, just showed obviously on the track. Oscar, obviously unlucky. He qualified P2, but then had a grid penalty, so he started P5. We could have had a double McLaren on the podium. And I reckon if we had a couple more laps, I think Lando, even maybe one lap, I think Lando could have taken Max. But the short DRS is a problem. You're right.
Yeah, I think it is. Even though we saw some great overtakes on the S's after that. There was one time, I think one of the Hasses did an out, probably Hulkenberg went on the outside of someone. It was brilliant.
And Yuki
overtake.
As well. Sonoda did an incredible overtake against Sargent. I think it's both times against Sargent.
He did. I think Yuki is having a great season. I've seen him as a little bit of a joke, really, since he started Formula One. Never really took it seriously enough, fitness-wise, just mucking around. He's having a great season in that RB. And I do wonder if the effect of Daniel Ricciardo actually has helped Yuki more than it's helped Daniel. Yuki is definitely driving his socks off. So that's been brilliant to watch. But Lando, I think he 2 more laps and he definitely would have got him with the DRS, and we'd have all loved to have seen that. But really, where the race was lost for Lando, in hindsight, was in the first stint when when they were on the medium tyres. Max was definitely the faster car on the mediums and got a 6-second lead. And then they switched to the hard tyres, sort of around sort of the early lap 20s. And from that point, Lando just controlled that zone rather than Max controlling the 6-second gap. I think Lando was controlling it and protecting his tyres, allowed Charles to catch him up. And then basically Lando drove phenomenally. And we saw the real potential of that McLaren, which is what we want to see. The only problem was that second that he needed in those last 2 laps that we didn't get was lost really in the first 10 laps of the race.
It was that very cautious tyre management strategy they had. And also, I don't think their pit stops were that fast either.
I, I actually looked at the timings of them. They were 2.4 seconds, both of them.
Mm,
And yet we're expecting sub 2 seconds now from McLaren and Red Bull, really. And we
mm.
didn't get that today. We also saw the unsafe release of Albon in the pits today, so that was poor showing by Williams. You know, how many times do you practice the pit stops? How many times?
Mm.
And I understand pressure, and it has to happen at that point. And we saw so many mistakes happening from Sauber, didn't we, earlier in the
Mm.
season, where they were doing like 10-second pit stops because there was something wrong with the guns. They've
Yeah.
clearly seemed to have sorted that out now. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, average pit stops all around today with a long pit lane as well. I think they were saying it's the longest, not necessarily the longest pit lane, but the longest time lost between going in the pits and coming out again, and hence why it was a one-stop race, because you just lose too much time going into the pits.
Yeah, it seemed like it took forever for them to get out of that,
Yeah.
and back out. And then, you've got the cars on the outlap, and okay, you can see they were just losing so many places.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get straight out of that and back into it. It was a special race as well because it also marked 30 years since the death of Ayrton Senna, who of course died there at San Marino, and Roland Ratzenberger in the same race, which is crazy. I mean, you know a lot more about Senna than I do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, Ratzenberger was on the Saturday, his big
Mm.
crash. I can't remember if it was in qualifying or FP3, if I'm honest with you, but it was on the Saturday. On the Friday, Rubens Barrichello had a really bad smash, more spectacular than either Ratzenberger or Senna from a visual point of view. My God, he's never going to get out of that. But it was, it was almost like a little warning, really. And then Ratzenberger on the Saturday, and then obviously the fateful Ayrton Senna in the Williams at Tamburello curve, which is now more of an S, fifth gear S bend, just to slow the cars down because of it. Yeah. It was interesting, really, because we all associate Imola and Tamburello with Ayrton Senna, and always will
Yeah.
do. And there's a statue there of him, looking very somber, sort of looking down, statue of Ayrton Senna. And Sebastian Vettel had arranged a few things this weekend in memory of him. I don't know if you saw any of it, where they had the yellow
Mm.
Senna T-shirts on, and
Mm.
I think all the drivers and Seb went for a run around the track and went to
Senna
the.
family were there as well.
That's it.
It was really involving everyone, and some drivers got flack for not wearing the t-shirt, but apparently the t-shirts got stolen
Ah.
from Bottas and Verstappen, so we'll give them a break for that.
Well, they will be sought after, that's for sure. So I think it was all really, really nice, and it also always reminds everybody, especially the drivers, that this is not a safe sport and you are risking your life. Health
Mm.
and safety in the sport is the best it's ever been, that's for sure. But it's not perfect, and I always remember at Turn 1 at Spa when Grosjean went over the top of Alonso's car, and if it how he didn't take your head off when those before the halos, just like.
For Halo, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of things that keep reminding us, but Senna, as you can see from all of them, he was the driver of all time, and
Mm.
unfulfilled, of course, potential with three world championships, and I'm sure there were more in there. Sure, there were more in there. So
He was brilliantly
anyway,
gifted. Mm.
yeah, yeah, it was just brilliant. And at the time when I was watching Formula One with Senna, for me it was all about Nigel Mansell, and he was being the Brit.
Mm.
So I was following Nigel. So of course Senna and Prost were the big sort of the baddies of it all,
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until really after it all that I realised quite what Senna was and what he did and what he achieved, really in the short space of time that he did it as well, compared to what we see drivers do now. Yeah, anyway, Imola will always be remembered. Joe, I've never been to Imola, and it is on my
Mm.
bucket list to go there, see the statue, see the track, maybe see the race as well if it's on a race weekend. Have you ever been there?
I've never been there. I haven't been to Monza either.
Mhm.
So definitely we need to break our Italian cherries and
We
make
do.
sure that we could go to these. I did meet a guy last week who was going to Monza, and yeah, I believe his name's Jordan. And mini shout out mid
Oh,
podcast, brand new alert. And his daughter got into F1 very recently because of Drive to Survive. Now is the complete aficionado, complete convert, and so they're going to Monza for the whole family, their first
hmm
race. And he said to me, they're all going to wear red for Ferrari, obviously. And he says, I don't know if I fancy it. What should I wear? I said, well, papaya is a lovely color. And he goes, what's papaya? And I go, well, it's kind of orange and it's from McLaren. And he goes, yes, I forgot about McLaren. I'm going to dress in McLaren. And then they had a right old Barney. Yeah, there we go. And the wife said, no, you have to wear red. We're going to Ferrari. He goes, no, I'm wearing papaya. So,
oh, good.
yeah, we'll look out for Monza. But it does look incredible. Yes, they've obviously changed that. People, like Ayrton Senna, were canvassing for greater health and safety. People like Jackie Stewart as well,
Yep.
because there were races back in the day where cars would go into the crowd and kill a bunch of people and then they'd just continue with the race. So it has come on and we're very happy for that. It's great to see Italy. It's great to see the fans en masse all in red. It's great to see them as well cheering on Lewis. And some of the artwork that they had on display were pictures of Lewis as Jesus next to Charles Leclerc, and they're really anticipating this move. We want to fast forward to next season. They're with me on this one. I think the world can't wait for this, and whether Adrian Newey is there or not. But what a great reception that Lewis had. He must feel good after that.
Yeah, obviously, we all want to fast forward to next year now. That's what we want to do, and just see Lewis in that Ferrari. I have to be honest. I was expecting and hearing rumours that there might be an Adrian Newey announcement this weekend. So I just had a quick look online, but there's nothing at this point in time at the moment. So maybe next weekend, Joe, down in Monaco. Who knows? But I think it's written in the stars.
Yeah, and look, spoiler alert. Eddie Jordan, who we might talk about a bit later, he apparently is the manager for Adrian Newey because they both have a
Who
place
knew?
in South Africa. Yeah, no one knew. Coulthard probably knew, but yeah, and so actually he helped broker the deal, and whatever the deal is. Everyone thinks it's probably the worst kept secret in F1 history. But yeah, so Eddie Jordan had a big part to play in that. So who knows, next week we might be able to get some more details out of him. So
we might well be able to find out. From what I know, the big thing really what Eddie negotiated was to get to not have Adrian Newey not work for another team for another 12 months. And to be fair to him, he's retirement age now. He doesn't really need to be doing anything. But for Formula One, this is just the best thing to get him straight into another team. And let's just see what happens, possibly in 2025, but definitely in 2026. I think it's really exciting. Legends working together.
Super exciting. Yeah, and it looked like Lewis was already taking it on board. The fashion, some of the stuff that he was wearing as he entered the paddock was interesting. You can Google those images, people at home, and see exactly what he was going on wearing. But he's really embracing this. But he loves that. He loves the fashion. He loves the fast cars. I mean, Ferrari, it just seems like a great home. But
yeah,
we'll see. This is going to be. We're talking about this for the rest of this season about what he's going to be like over there. But no, this was Max's race, and look, we don't talk about Max a lot, and I think some people saying that he's losing, the losing the joy and the fun. He's always publicly stated he's achieved everything he wants to achieve. In F1, he's not particularly bothered about becoming 8th or 9th world champion or something. It appears. I mean, so much so, and so you could say maybe cocky or blasé, that he actually entered himself into a 24-hour Le Mans sim race over the weekend and won it.
How does this work? Because not being funny, I've seen him on track in the last 24 hours, the last 48 hours, and the last 72 hours. How can he have done it? Is it like 6 hours at a time and 6 hours at? I don't understand this. How this has worked.
I don't know. I
is
don't
he
know.
actually got a screen in the car and he's actually playing on the on the
Yeah,
Xbox then
it's
and drive?
not
What?
enough of a challenge. Yeah,
I
he
am. That's
won the
baffled me.
race, and it's unbelievable. And that just shows how really he's one head of a driver. I mean, I think Christian Horner, he mentioned that he stayed up to watch the fight
Yeah.
last night, the Fury Usyk, which I did as well.
Uh huh.
Hence why I'm a little bit tired. But well done to Usyk. Um, yeah, it's unbelievable, and the fact that he wants to be racing when he's not racing. So
Yes.
he's racing all the time.
Well, Joe, I just before the race today, I had the build up on my iPad, trying to do some chores in the house. I'm just trying to fold a little bit of washing and get it all put away. And I walked into my son Lucas's bedroom, and he's got a simulator sat there with the car seat and
Mm.
the pedals and everything and the screen and all using F1. And every weekend that we're not racing. On a F1 weekend, he will sit and do the track before the race. And he said to me, he said, "Oh, what was the pole position time, Dad, from yesterday?" And I said, "Mate, I think it was 1:15.7." And he just sat there and went, "Yeah, I've just done a 1:14.9. No assists, no driver assists, no nothing." And
Wow.
I don't know quite, is track limit switched on or whatever. But he said I had no assists, no that, and I thought, oh man, come on, when you've got that in you, you just want to sit and do it. So he watches about the first 3 laps of the race, Lucas did, and went, oh, I can't watch this, and went back upstairs and started racing again because he just watches it and goes, I want to be doing it, not watching it.
Mm.
Whereas me and
Yeah,
my son Harrison, we're like, right, we want to know all the stats, we want to know all the team interplays, we want to know
yeah,
who's going to pit stop when and who's on what tires. And Lucas is just like, get me in the car. So again, I'm sure some people write in and say what times they've been doing on the Imola track with no driver assists in F1 2024. But I am rubbish. That's all I can tell you. I've sat there and I've
I'm
tried to
rubbish
even
as well.
keep it on the track with driver assists, and I'm 10 seconds slower
With
than
the
Lucas.
line showing
Yeah,
for you as
yeah.
well. Yeah, exactly. The
Oh
racing
man,
line.
you get to an age, it's no good. It's
It's
all
hard.
gone. Yes, it's
Mario,
really
that's
difficult.
that's our limits. Maybe a bit Donkey Kong.
Well,
Yeah.
I thought Max did a bit of Mario Kart, didn't he, in Miami when he took the bollard out of the chicane?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Should have got
Could have
more
been a
points
banana
for that.
skin. Yeah, it should have actually. It should have.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, good. It was. You're right. It wasn't the most exciting race. You've talked me down. I wasn't hyping it, but I thought, look, it was interesting. We didn't see any crazy collisions. I thought some lovely overtaking. Certainly, those S curves were fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, very strange weekend though for Aston Martin.
Mm.
What on earth happened there? Alonso, I mean, I think he finished
Well,
what, 18th, 17th? I have to look it
uh,
up. 19th.
19th, mate, 19th, and
That's
I
because
think he retired the
Albon
car, didn't he,
DNFs.
on the penultimate lap or something? Mate,
Perhaps, yeah.
it's an interesting one for me because I've actually been looking this up. Do you remember last year I was down in Monaco watching the race on Tabac Corner, and if it wasn't for the strategy of putting a set of when Alonso came into the pits, he put on a set of mediums, went out, but the rain started just as he was coming out. Now they could have predicted this and stuck him on wet straight away. Had they put him on wets, he'd have gone out and won that race. Uh, Allegedly, we don't know what
Mm.
else would have happened and so on. But from a strategical point of view, he could have won that race last year. And I remember talking to Andy Stevenson of Aston Martin, and that's all we talked about was you should have won that race today. And of course, they haven't won a race, and Alonso hasn't won a race for a number of years. And it's taking these opportunities a year on, and what has happened to Aston Martin? Something's not right. Obviously, he damaged the car and his weekend was set back, but they've definitely fallen back to, where we've got this like upper top 5 teams and lower 5 teams. Aston Martin have definitely dropped off of even Mercedes now. And whereas I thought at the start of the season, first couple of races, they were pretty similar. But saying that, Lance Stroll finished 9th today. 2 points for Lance.
2 points.
Well done. And he made a great move on Hulkenberg and Sonoda.
Mm.
I thought that's the best drive of the season for me that I've seen him do. I know it's only ninth, but right now, if we're going to take those top 5 teams, you're putting Aston Martin in ninth and 10th. That's where you're going to place them.
But look who's above him. Eighth place was Perez.
Well,
He started 11th, I think.
yeah.
Russell was just in front, and Hamilton, and then you're into the Ferraris, and then
Well,
onto the podium. So respectable.
Interestingly, I think what Lewis or George actually said before the race that they absolutely feel that they are 6th and 7th right now in the placing of the cars. So when you think to yourself, well, hold on, that's odd numbers, because surely you'd put Red Bull and McLaren and then Ferrari and then Mercedes, which would make them 7th and 8th. They've not
Mm.
put they've put themselves ahead of Perez, and they're absolutely right. What? Where was Perez? He was 30 seconds behind the Mercedes.
Mm.
I thought he's had a good start to the season, doing exactly the job Red Bull and Max need him to do. But where was he today?
No,
That
nowhere.
was really strange. He was nowhere. And so,
Mm.
even for him to finish 8th, I had to look it up to see where he'd finished, actually. I didn't even notice what
I
he'd
hardly
done.
saw him the whole
Yeah.
race. Yeah.
Yeah, that was very, very, very strange. But, going back to the podium, though, as we said, Lando is looking monster right now in that McLaren with the upgrades,
Really
and
on form.
Oscar looking pretty good too. But also, that's the first time there's been a Ferrari on the Imola podium for I'm not quite sure how many years, but a long since Michael Schumacher. That's what I can tell you. So that's got to be 2006 was the last season Schumacher was in a Ferrari.
That is crazy.
To be fair, there
Well,
weren't a lot of there was a lot of years missed at Imola, but in that time too, but because it came back for the COVID years when they were just in Europe with no fans. But still, so I think we're
yeah.
cheering on a third here. You know, Tifosi seemed really happy to get third, and I think right now with McLaren looking so good, I think they'll take third.
Yeah, and a couple of facts here I've looked up while you were chatting. 2006, you're right,
Hmm.
was when Schumacher won there. So for Leclerc third, it was the first time since 2006, nearly 20 years. And another fact is that the Italians don't call themselves tifosi.
Ah, we
Um,
call them that. What do they call themselves? Come on.
I don't know, fans. They're like, oi. They're
Uh,
because tifosi is Italian for fans, but they don't call themselves that. Like the
okay.
Orange Army call themselves the Orange Army or the Orange,
Yeah.
Army. But yeah, so it's a novel thing. We call them that, and they don't call themselves that. We've
I
got a
suppose.
couple of comments as
Oh,
well.
have we?
Sorry. Yeah, but sorry, but were you gonna say about the tifosi?
No, I wasn't at all. I've just, whenever I'm teaching piano, when I'm teaching music, there's
Yeah,
lots of Italian words that are used in music. So I ask these kids, how much Italian do you know? And they're like, oh, I
yeah.
don't know it. I don't know any of it, But so I say, well, pizza and pasta. I can say tifosi now as well. They'll look at me like I'm stupid.
That's all right.
What
Well,
what are the shout out? What are the
we've got a
comments, Tom?
comment. Yeah, we've got a comment here, and I think I can show it on the screen. So, can you see that, Darren?
Yeah, yeah. So Perez will be a hindrance to Red Bull in terms of the constructors, especially with Ferrari and McLaren coming closer.
That's from Hippick Morgan, 1997.
I think that so that's Harry. Hi Harry, shout out to Harry. So Harry is he listens to our podcast every week, and he even came to see a couple of Queen Extravaganza shows this year. So Harry, good to hear from you. I
Cheers, Harry.
think Perez has done a really good job this season as the sort of wingman to Max, but this is before McLaren had their upgrades of what we've seen, and since the McLaren upgrades, Perez has been nowhere and poor
Mm.
qualifying. I think he might have had a penalty as well at some point. So not this race, but the previous race. So right now he's just no help whatsoever, and we're seeing really close racing between Leclerc and Sainz, really close racing between Lando and Oscar. So I think you're right. I think the gulf between Max and Sergio is bigger than the
Maybe the
other teams.
investment isn't being put into Sergio. I mean, maybe they've just kind of given up. I mean, maybe they know something we don't, that, his contract might be up end of this year,
Hmm.
and they're going to refresh the lineup. I mean, at the moment, Red Bull on 268 points, Ferrari's on 212. So, look, Max is looking dominant again this season. He'll keep winning, and
Yep.
that's a broader gap of points. So it's 25 points, isn't it, for a win? But McLaren, 154 points, third at the moment.
They-
They could catch Ferrari
yeah.
and then put a lot of pressure on Red Bull, especially if they've got two drivers who are really performing. Ferrari are going to be top 5, top 6 consistently, and Perez is going to be down in 8th or ninth.
Yeah.
That is, I agree, that is a real threat.
We must remember we're still this is round 7 out of 24, so we're
Mm.
we're not even a third of the way through the season
There's a
yet.
lot
So
more
the
podcasts.
there's a lot more podcasts. I'm looking forward to them. But Monaco next week will be a third of the way through the season. So quite frankly, two McLarens keep finishing. They can put some pressure on later in the
Well,
season, after round 15, 16, if they can continue this momentum. I'm not seeing improvements from Red Bull right now. I don't think they've got anything left to improve the car. I think the car is perfection, which only leaves everybody else to get to close that gap. And Ferrari and McLaren are definitely doing that. I think Mercedes and possibly Aston Martin could be now just completely putting everything into 2026 regulations.
Well, we have someone who agrees. This is Wick, who's watching us on YouTube. McLaren does have the strongest lineup, in my opinion. I agree with that, Wick, because again, those upgrades that have come in, I think all the other teams are going to be looking at what McLaren have done, certainly, and seeing where they've found that incremental increase in performance and efficiency. But they've also got that. I think that McLaren have got this amazing wave of positivity and let's go and drive and momentum. I mean, we saw Lando's homecoming to Woking the other day, with all the staff and all the colleagues there. It really feels like one unified place. Red Bull is the opposite at the moment. It's fractured.
Yeah.
People are leaving in droves. The CVs of engineers apparently are being touted around everywhere. I think Toto is going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of that because he's going to poach a lot of talent. He may even poach Max. That could be something on the cards.
It's definitely been rumoured. I was listening to, was it Ted's Notebook yesterday? Well, I actually watched Quali this morning because I was away working last night till late. But so I watched it this morning when I woke up. And he was saying that there's real rumours that Mercedes are so excited about their 2026 engine when it's 50-50 combustion engine and electric. And they haven't felt this confidence since the 2014 car for those regulations, when Lewis basically then just blew everybody away. So it's very interesting. We still don't know who's going to fill that Mercedes seat in 2025, and I still just I can't.
You like Antonelli, don't you?
I think I want to see some rookies in Formula One. I think there has to be a rule where there has to be at least one rookie every season. I do think if we could get Andretti in and maybe another team, there's much more chance of it happening. But the teams need to relax a little bit on that and stop just putting money first. But they always will.
Yeah.
And
I think Antonelli, sorry to jump in, but Antonelli and Mick Schumacher were testing this weekend.
Okay,
That's
so
what I
maybe
heard.
it is between those two, and they've been talking about getting a license for Antonelli to try and fast track it because of his age. I'm also with that going back to Perez in the second seat in Red Bull. Obviously Daniel Ricciardo went into try and claim that seat for 2025 over Perez. I'm watching Yuki going. Hold on, Yuki is doing a great job right now in the V carb. Now, did you know that's what they're called this weekend?
Oh, God.
I can't keep up. It's ridiculous.
Red
The
Bull
V
Junior.
carb with an RB at the end.
That's weird.
But there's Liam Lawson still sat there, and I think it'd be wonderful to see a rookie in Red Bull next season. I want Lawson in there. I've always loved Sergio. I've loved him more when he was driving for McLaren and latterly Force India and Racing Point. He in the Red Bull, yes, he's won races, so it's been good for his CV, but he's always been the second driver. I want to see a number of rookies next season. I'm afraid these paid driver situations like Logan and Lafiti in the Williams the last few seasons it's just not really good enough. And I felt that about Yuki really until this
Mm,
year, and also we know Hulkenberg is going to Sauber next season, so Bottas or Zhou are going to be out of a drive, or at least out of that
mm,
team. I don't know
mm.
which one I'd drop, if I'm honest, because they've neither of them have scored a point.
No.
You know, Williams and Sauber do not have 1 point right now. I think a lot of that is also to do with reliability of the top 5 teams. Doesn't help.
I mean, I'm just looking at the points here. Yeah, Williams and Sauber, not and Alpine has 1 point.
Mm.
I mean, Haas has 7. I mean, that is not so. I mean, how are they beating basically Alfa Romeo and Alpine? I mean, come on, there's something weird going on, and Hulkenberg's leaving, so
Yeah.
Haas has got a problem. They do
Yeah.
have a problem looming, and they've got to feel that.
Well,
I think Liam Lawson is a great shout. Yuki, perhaps. I mean, I've got a comment here from Wick as well. My beautiful Yuki is doing so well.
oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah. I
ever
agree.
since the Helmo comments, it's like he's put into another gear
Yeah.
since. So Yuki and Liam at Red Bull could be something. I don't
Well,
know.
well, if Max does go to Mercedes in 2026, there's lots and lots that could happen. It is what keeps us really excited about it all.
Mm,
My initial first prediction on any rookies is I think we'll see Antonelli before the end of the season somewhere, and we might even
mm.
see Oliver Behrman. I think Behrman for the Haas next year to replace Hulkenberg.
Great shout. I think it's a great shout. And he,
Yep.
he really showed, I mean, he did so well. I mean, when he came out and just jumped in that car and drove it
Oh,
and so well.
just phenomenal. Well, I'm just looking now. He's where is he in the drive? There he is. He's still
Yeah.
12th in the drivers' championship. From one race. It's outrageous.
And Hulkenberg's been driving his socks off and he's
Oh yeah.
like equaling.
Yeah.
We're not going to mention Alpine. What's the point? I'm sorry, I've really lost interest. I mean, I want to see Rob and Ryan Reynolds rock up because I love Welcome to Wrexham, but they haven't really had that impact yet. And yeah, we'll have to see. So we can speculate all we like. But what we should move on, and we'll move on to the next race. And the next race next week, Darren, is
Monaco.
Monaco. Now it's going to be my first time to Monaco, so I'm dead excited. You're an old hand now.
I am.
You've been quite a few times. You've walked around, you've walked the track and driven it and licked it and everything.
I have.
So we're going to have an amazing time next week. We're going to be doing Race House and a bunch of other things over in Monaco. Can you tell us don't tell us everything, but a bit about what we're going to do next week, Darren?
Well, Joe, we're both down in Monaco working on a couple of yachts is where we'll be, and just on the marina where the yachts are, obviously. And we're going to be doing some musical events. We're going to be doing some sales events, and we're going to be doing some presenting as well. So there's lots and lots going on in Monaco on the yachts. They're wonderful hospitality things that is just, you don't see yachts very often. Abu Dhabi, where we were at the end of last season, you get them in Monaco, and you see them in Miami in a very odd way. But
Yes.
I love the quirkiness of what they've done in Miami. Really, I think it's
It's
just
his own
fun.
thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun, and it's just great to be on a yacht, But the funny thing for me, Joe, is it's a no shoes policy, so everybody's walking around in their socks. I always find that bizarre. It just doesn't sit right to me. Very, very strange. But I totally understand it. So, yeah, we're going to be down there. We're going to be doing the podcast from there at some point from somewhere. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we might get a chance to do a few interviews, Joe, depending on who we bump into. So we
never know. It's a small place.
It's a take it as it comes. It's a very small place. And I was down there just 2 or 3 weeks ago whilst they were all setting it up. And I went to the Prince Albert's Motor Museum of all his cars that he's got, which is just on the corner before the swimming pool, just there on the right.
Oh, wow.
And then And then if you go round the swimming pool onto the other side, there's a pizza restaurant that just takes over most of the track, to be honest with you, just so enough cars can get by for those trying to drive the circuit, because that's what we all want to do, isn't it? So it was great fun down there, just to say, a few weeks ago with my band, and I'm really looking forward, Joe, to getting out there, and at some point we'll try and have a little walk around some of the track as well. Get some
Well, we
photos.
definitely have to. We get some photos, and I'm looking forward to being in your good hands to see it. My first time, very excited. We'll be there next week. Is the Monaco Grand Prix? If you're in Monaco, come and say hi. Come and grab us. You know,
Yeah.
you can go to racehouse.cc, send us a message through the YouTube, through the comments, and we'll be pleased to say hi and have a photo, and maybe we can have a chat on the podcast. But for now, it's goodbye from me, Joe Lee.
And it's goodbye from me, Darren Reeves. Take care.
Take care.